What is up, guys? Welcome back to Artie's Kooky Music Party. It's your boy Artie, and I am here with Simon from the band The Organ Freeman. How you doing today, Simon?
I'm doing well. It's nice to say hello from across the pond as well.
It is indeed. Now, as as you've already pointed out, this is quite a different I guess that I have because I would normally do local Texas bands and whatnot, but uh, Simon's band is a really cool one from all the way in London, right?
We're not in London,
Oh,
actually. We're in
I see.
Liverpool. So if you think the Beatles, that's your nearest landmark to Liverpool. Um,
Man.
yes, well, I say technically Liverpool. Technically, we're across the water from Liverpool. So you've got the River Mersey in between a little peninsula called the Wirral, and that's where I am in Birkenhead, the Wirral.
Ah, well, there you go. I feel very
Sorry to
dumb
get.
now because I just remembered. I remember reading it was like an L city, but and
Uh-huh.
when you think of L cities in England,
No, London's your go-to, I guess, isn't it,
yeah.
in the brain?
Well, there's there's my research, but yeah. So he's quite international, I guess, and
hmm
but yeah, let's get into it. So tell me about the Organ Freeman. What's y'all's synopsis or
Well, let's start by saying we kind of got to know each other through quite an unusual circumstance, I guess, didn't
Oh
we?
yes, yes, of
Which
course.
is kind of an international circumstance. It's commonly made international mistake. Um, well, so it's kind of odd to even be chatting to you in the first place. I think you so how do I sort of get this into a timeline, really? So the band name is Organ Freeman or The Organ Freeman.
Mhm.
Um, that was a band name we chose 10 years ago. We've been going for 10 years now, which just feels crazy um, to be doing this that long. And I think about maybe 4 or 5 years into us doing this, we noticed a band from Los Angeles, I believe,
Mhm.
with the same name. They just started doing things, I think, like a jazz trio. I think they're also very good at what they do.
Oh yeah.
And I remember just thinking, sort of purely out of respect, that I'll message this band and say, "Oh, just so you know." Because it's an easy, it's a funny name. It's something people, it's not by any means the most unique name in the way. It's someone's popular
Mhm.
name with the M taken out of it. It's going to happen. And so I messaged them saying, look, we're already this band. We've got merchandise. We've kind of got this local fan base. Just so you're aware, there might be a confusion. And they blocked us just instantly. Like, didn't say anything and just kind of blocked us. And the funny thing about this Organ Freeman in LA is that they've really tried. They're good at what they do, and they really try. And they really tried to put out records.
Mhm.
They're kind of like the opposite version of us, because we're like this ultimate, like, aim low, ultra local band with a cult fan base over here,
Mhm.
which it really, to the rest of the world, like, it doesn't matter to the rest of the world as far as I'm concerned. This project we do, and so just at the start of quarantine, I found these mixing desk recordings of these sort of live things we'd done, and I put them into a bit of a compilation. For the first time ever, we really kind of put something just on Spotify,
Mhm.
and we've always had an internet presence, but it's always been like only understood by this sort of cult world we've sort of created. And occasionally you'll get like this LA, the fans of the LA one sort of mistake us, and that's the kind of worst it happens. I think you contacted us originally. Have you seen this LA Organ Freeman or heard of them before? What's your deal with them?
Yeah, so that was exactly what you said.
Mm.
Like I just trying to. I'm a really big. Do you know Adam Neely, the YouTuber?
I don't. I'm so out of the YouTube world that
Oh, it's all
feel
good.
free to educate me on this, because I'll take any opportunity, I think.
Oh well, for you and the viewers at home, I always highly recommend it if you're just into general music stuff.
Uh-huh.
He's a jazz bassist and talks about just music stuff
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure I heard of them from him because there's on the similar kind of jazz fusion type genre as he is,
Sure.
and I went to look them up, and I just got super into them, and yeah, basically what you're describing earlier, I went to look them up on Instagram,
hmm
and I ended up following y'all,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you did.
yeah, and so when you posted those mix downs that you're talking about earlier, and I forgot to mention that they're a jazz trio and they're all instrumental. It's all instrumental based,
It
like
is.
all their music. And so
Uh-huh.
y'all post y'all's, and I hear those vocals, and
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
the first thing I DM was, "Oh my goodness, y'all are singing now. This is so cool!" And because I was just completely blown away by
Yeah.
what I had heard, and I was
Uh-huh.
just really you know, just really excited by it. And it
Yeah.
was all the more surprising when you actually responded. So it's like, oh man. But yeah,
Yeah.
after a bit of a communication between us, I slowly came to the realization that y'all were in fact not the Organ Freeman that I thought y'all were, but
Uh-huh. But the
uh,
real one.
yeah, but the better one in my opinion. I like
No,
y'all.
I wouldn't know. What's surprising about that? So basically, if anybody has this exchange, so let's say someone like tags us in something that is to do with this LA Organ Freeman, usually
Oh,
internally within the band, we have a bit of fun about it. I'll post it in our sort of WhatsApp group and I'll say, hey, look, this person thinks we're this, and isn't that funny? When you did it, I remember posting a screenshot of your communication into the group and saying like, "Oh God, how awkward must it be for this guy to now hear us?" Because in my opinion, we don't make listenable music. We make music that, and I'll go into this, shortly
Mhm,
about the ethics of. The ethos that we have with live performances and sort of
mhm.
I'll give you a brief history of us getting into live performance, but to me it was always like the only people who listen to this stuff is the people who've seen us live, and that was what was what makes sense. So then when you ended up saying that you were really actually into it, I think there was a bit of like a change in our attitude in the chat where we were like, oh, this guy's it's great how this guy actually is seems to be into this music, and it kind of because I feel like we're so sure that we've got everything under control and we know our audience, and that's why we're less phased about being mixed up, because it's much more embarrassing for this other Organ Freeman to be mistaken for us than it is for us to be mistaken for them, if you understand. So
Yeah.
it was a surprise, genuinely, that you liked these recordings. Um,
I mean, yeah, like, because gosh, y'all were just it's such a fresh sound, you
mhm.
know, from what I'm because the reason why I thought y'all were even the same one was because, like, you know, y'all aren't. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but there's still the heavy use of organs and synths that
Yes, yeah,
they
yeah.
all, they all both use, and so that's why for me it was just like, okay, so they just kind of veered off into a different direction. But like I said before, I genuinely liked
Oh,
y'all's better
I
because
really
I mean,
appreciate that.
yeah, and you know, even my friends, like I'll play, you know, I have a bunch of y'all songs on my playlist, and I'll play it
Mhm,
for in the car or whatever. And it's one of those songs that make my friend, you know, the ears perk up, and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" Because it's just
mhm.
something that none of us have ever heard before, and it's just really cool stuff you got going on.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, that it's really it's interesting you described it that way, actually, because I think when we so to go into like the history of how we ended up doing this
Mhm,
this particular project, because we're all musicians. Each member is I've either been in a band with doing other things that are completely different, and this is by no means like our sort of like um, it's become actually surprisingly the most successful sort of output of what we've done, but it was always
mhm,
meant to be a bit of like a stress reliever. This band, it was something we just can do and not have very little expectation. But originally, I think the idea was always to do something kind of like well, I was in bands from when I was like 15, 16 with similar age people. My brother, who's the drummer in Organ Freeman as well, and also a very,
mhm,
very good writer and composer. He, I've always been in bands with him. When I was like 15, 16, we were going through the typical sort of process that any young band does, idolizing bigger people out on bigger stages and thinking I want to support that band and I want to do that and I want to do that thing, and then almost like playing the game, trying to score gigs, playing to nobody, playing to empty rooms. Did all that sort of rites of passage stuff, got ripped off by ticket vendors and all this kind of thing, sat struggling to sort of fill rooms and all blah, blah, blah. And
I'm
then,
wait, I'm sorry
well,
if I to cut you off, but that last thing you
sure.
said was that with that about getting ripped off, was that the inspiration for that song of y'all's? We're not getting paid.
Oh, let, I can tell you that there's a fantastic story about that song.
All right. All right.
Okay, should we talk about that one now, or do you want me to continue this?
You can continue. I just
I'll
sorry.
continue this, but
I heard
no,
it.
no.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd ask about that because it's one of my favorite.
It's same.
But no, but that actually it kind of fits what I'm trying to craft here. So like having that history of like going through what I assume every teenage band goes through. Out the other side of that, we end up obviously much more mature musically, knowing what to do and what not to do, and what to agree to and what not to agree to, and what is a good venue and all this. And Liverpool's a great place to play. Obviously, it's got a big, rich musical history here in Liverpool. It could be better with funding and the way the government is right now, but it's got this sort of it's small enough, but big enough to make a splash in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like being in a big city. I mean, even Manchester, which is has a much bigger pool to sort of play in. It's harder to make a splash. I've always appreciated the size of this city and the culture it has. But when you understand those things, you can then focus on the things you actually like doing a lot more. You've got the experience. And then so we were doing more serious bands. I'm a guitarist mainly. Played keys and always liked to write, but was never a front. It doesn't. I don't think even matters. You could be just also. I don't know to clarify that. I'm sort of think one of. Well, it's a weird sort of band. Usually, kind of like yeah. Anyway, carry on. So I never fronted a band always, but always felt. I think whatever band I was in, the thing that I liked as the core thing was performance. And I always idolized bands like At the Drive-In, and do you know At the Drive-In?
I sadly do not.
You don't. I'm just trying to think of when I was a teenager, what did I focus in on? And it was people really giving this sort of raw, passionate sort of performance. Even people breaking things, or just doing these unconventional things that caught attention, but not for the sake of attention, for the sake of because they can't help but do it. I think Fugazi were another one as well. I remember looking at these photographs of them in playing this basketball court, and the singer's upside down with inside the hoop, and I thought, oh my god, that's amazing. And it was all those kind of things, and that slowly starts creeping into these bands I'm playing in. Then I remember we were in a band called Man Eats Plain, which had this. We had an organ player. I was the guitarist, bass player, lead singer, drummer. It was kind of like this almost like horror rock kind of dark, almost Morrissey twist as well. Okay. And it was really fun, and we were sort of getting somewhere. We were playing with good bands, but it just felt like such a it just felt like quite a slog to do. It was a lot of equipment to bung around. If you had a bad show, you had a really bad show, because you're taking all this gear back to the car and you're getting it through, and so much setup and so much riding on doing this thing. Sometimes you'd play a really good show and there'd be nobody there, and all the typical things everyone would expect. And at that moment, I remember four of the members in that band, we decided, well, should we do something just a bit more left field and experimental, but just for us, like the idea of it was to do something so anti what we're meant to do, because we know what we're meant to do, so let's just do the opposite of that. And I think one of the members at the time was getting really into noise music, so just like this unbearable sort of like like I think we would bind. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like super like aggressive, but to do it live as well. I think we were watching artists. Do you know this Japanese artist called Masona? Do you know him?
The name sounds familiar.
He's like sort of like real old school pioneer of this stuff. But there'd be like these live shows in record shops where he had like a megaphone. All he would do is like scream through this megaphone. And it was really brutal, and so like I mean, I might watch it now and it might make me cringe a bit. I don't know. But I remember at the time watching it and thinking, because the audience had just stood there looking at him. Oh, God, that's amazing. So we were maybe like 17 and stuff. And so we decided to start this noise band. We bought all these like little contact mics that you can sell tape to any we were doing this like household appliance, so buying like a whisker or something and taping it to, and then plugging it into a jack cable. And then I think our gimmick was we all had those little 10-watt amps, and we had a 10-watt amp each, and then we'd book a show, and we'd just do this unbearable noise. And that's how it started. And it was obviously meant to be repellent, and it was meant to be aggressive, and but there was some joy out of that, of like doing the unexpected. And I remember one day finding this guy on YouTube, and this would have been about 10 years ago. Yeah, no, this would have been 10 years, because this is before Organ Freeman. And a guy called the Emotron. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I have not.
So his name, Jason Kyle Knight, this guy, and he this video was like, I remember he had like, he'd shaved the top of his head, and then he's got like sort of old man hair going around, but he must be only about 25 in this video. And he's sort of wearing these Y fronts, kind of like little tiny underwear and a vest, and he's kind of like an odd sight to look at. And then but he's doing this karaoke-esque performance, and he's playing out of this like sequencer that's pounding out this sort of unconventional sort of digital music. And it had the same effect. It had like all the audience stood around, not knowing really what to think of it, but clearly into it too, almost like trying to figure it out. And he's doing this sort of pop enthused, and it's positive too as well. It's not like, but I remember looking at it, and I remember showing one of the members of Organ Freeman saying, I don't know if I like that. I can't figure out if I like this. And it was that sort of wonder. And I ended up like really heavily getting into this guy, the Emotron, and just because it was almost like when you see something so like what you enjoy and what you almost want to do, and it was just, I couldn't look away from it. And I researched this thing he's got. Oh no, hang on. But just before this, actually, sorry. Just as we were getting into this the Emotron, I remember we played the show as this noise band, and somewhere we got the idea to not just do noise, but to surprise people. So we'd have this noise set of unbearable sort of kitchen equipment noise, and then right at the end we did like a cover of "Because the Night" by Patti Smith.
That is, I love that song so much.
Yeah, so we thought like of course, it's a great song, Springsteen, of course, and we performed that, and it was almost like, because we had this raw noise, and everyone was like, oh, what? And then we did "Because the Night" with a sort of MIDI arrangement. Like everyone had this, it perked up people's ears again. And right at the end of that, we were packing all this stuff away, and this guy came over, this guy called Luca, what was his name? Luca Battozzi, an Italian guy, much older than us. And he was like just describing what we did in a much more mature way than I could articulate at the time. Like really sort of like analyzing it, but really joyfully analyzing it, saying, oh, you don't, almost like saying, you don't know how good this thing you've just done is. And I think in hindsight, I think if I saw a younger band just sort of do something strange like that and pull it off, I'd probably feel the same way. But he really encouraged us to get in touch with a guy called Khalil West. And we did. And at the time, I remember just thinking, like, why is anyone even interested? Just because we were just doing what we wanted to do. And the idea was almost like it was unlistenable. And we get in touch with this guy called Khalil West, who he's runs these fantastic gay scene nightclub events in Liverpool and also in Manchester. And he's an American big black guy who's just like a big wonderful gentle giant he was, but he was so encouraging and so excited to hear what we could do from this from Luca's voice. Luca had kind of sold him sold us to him, and he said, I want to book you for this nightclub event I do called Chew Disco. I think we played one of them, and I think we ended up pivoting into this like aggressive covers band at this point. We were like, well, this that Because the Night was so fun to do, how about if we did that but with all these other songs that we really like you just said, that Because the Night is an undeniably great song.
And also, like, what would you like? What's the time? Like, what year is this
Oh,
around?
this is well, this will be 10 years ago. So this was like 2010.
Okay, all right, man.
Yeah. So I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, what were you getting at? Do you just think?
No, just to give the people listening,
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sorry.
reference. No, yeah, no,
Well, all
I
this,
get
I
it.
suppose the takeaway from this is that all this is happening quite fast, I think, unusually fast than what we thought. You know, we'd started doing this nothing thing, and then all of a sudden people are
Yeah.
really interested. Because previous to this, we're really trying with all these other bands we're doing. You know, I'm messaging people who aren't getting back to me, and I'm playing these gigs, and excuse me, the best we're getting is like a few compliments, and then all of a sudden
Hmm.
we do this thing that we all just enjoy doing, and it's starting to gain momentum. We played this queer night, which the audience were just so welcoming, especially we're four straight white guys playing this gay night, and we're being encouraged by this audience to just do more and more, and they love it, and they just keep booking us. And I think the more we were booked by this audience, so we started playing in between Manchester and Liverpool here. They're just sort of crafting us a lot more because we're able to start playing for an audience who
Hmm.
really appreciate sort of weirdness, if that makes sense, instead of just
Yeah.
playing because they're just so far ahead. This subculture just seems to be so far ahead on their acceptance of the weird.
Yeah.
And our version of weird was never meant to be like, let's do something we purposefully think is strange. It was like, let's not ask questions ourselves, and
Yeah.
then they
Just do.
can't. Yeah, they can't be answered down the line. It's we would always dress up. We would dress up as it wouldn't be dressing up as something. It would just be dressing up.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to wear all yellow, for example, we'd do that, but then no one would say, "Oh, what are you guys dressed as?" It could never be answered, and that was always funner to us, I think. Yeah, and to have a community that really encouraged that was really good. Um,
Yeah, because like y'all's image is very like that. That's also a very important other side to it all. The image that your
yes.
band puts out, and
Uh-huh.
I've always just been super impressed. It's always very clean looking and very just like natural. Nothing's very forced about it. It's
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is y'all
yeah.
being y'all.
Well, it is, and I think it's us being able to play a character that's like safe for us as well. If we're the only ones directing it, then it feels like it can't go wrong. If that makes sense. Also,
Hmm.
like I think if you really do you, then it can't. It's very hard to be criticized. Um, and I think that's why when you were saying some about putting the music on a stereo and people focusing in on it because it sounds different to what they expected. It was always the same experience whenever we'd play a live show. If we were to play a live show, essentially everybody would just stop what they're doing and walk from one room into this room we're in, and either it was weird. Like people, it's unheckleable. People didn't really heckle it either, even though because it's so obviously out there and so obviously kind of stupid in a way.
Hmm.
People have a real difficult time sort of finding a flaw with it because they can't understand it as well as they'd like. They've got no. We're not giving. It's almost like we're giving them too much material to work with, so they don't know what to say in return. But playing that scene specifically, this queer and gay scene, really, really helped us, I think, in our confidence of finding what we
Hmm.
wanted to do. The instrumentation I meant to say before, like all the stuff, and this is the reason why all sounds so digital and synthesis, but also kind of like very well, it is all programmed, and it's programmed on this Yamaha QY 700 sequencer, which takes floppy disks.
Oh man,
It's
yeah.
been our like workhorse for a long time, so it's all meticulously sequenced within this general MIDI stuff, which is a real pain to do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you got to save it to a floppy disk, which we ended up modding with a really bad USB drive, which is very faulty now. But there would be some times we'd be on stage, and I remember because another part of our show is to kind of talk to the audience and kind of give a bit of.
Really?
It's not necessarily comedy, but it's almost like it's kind of like anti-comedy in a way.
Yeah.
And people So I remember really hyping up this new song that we had, and I was being sincere too. I was saying, we've got this new song, and it became this kind of bit in between the other songs. I just wait until you hear this new one, or you think that one was good. Wait until you hear this new one, and it came to this new one, and I went to load it up, and it said corrupt floppy disk. So we couldn't even play it. But people thought that was the joke in the end. It kind of ended up paying off a lot more, thinking I'd sort of hyped up this track that didn't exist, but it was genuine. Yeah, but floppy disks, yeah, pain in the butt.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, but still, that's still amazing that you're just using what you've got and making what I hearing today, and I couldn't because for me the only exposure I've ever had to y'all is just the those recordings that y'all released, and just like for me that was already just crazy enough. Like the Elephant Man, that is one of my favorite songs. And actually I was meaning to ask you is I don't want to get into the specifics of what y'all say in the beginning, but I'm pretty sure it's the live version that I hear that I listen to. Is that like, is that only on the live version, or is that part of the song?
Which bit are you referring to? I know you didn't want to get into specifics, but
yeah, it's
oh
yeah.
I know. Sorry, yeah, no. See, silly things like that, they work out. No, that wouldn't be considered a part of the song. That was kind of a daft little thing. No, those are these like small things. See, we might do that thing once, find it really funny, almost do it so much that it turns not funny, and then it becomes funny again, and then it works its way into a song.
Oh, it very much works. Like,
the
first time I heard that, I just my face, I just could not stop laughing. It was the funniest thing ever, because and especially so because I was just listening to your entire thing, like one song after another. So it's just I already get your weird vibe. I had already gotten your weird vibe, but then all of a sudden this comes on, and it just more and more just comes out of left field, and I just like that with y'all. Nothing's ever.
Well, I think anybody who gets it is welcome too, which that it kind of goes towards this cult following that we ended up sort of getting, and the cult following kind of comes from that kind of thing of like, I saw this band live, you really need to see them live, and people is there have they got a record or something like that? No, they're just live, that's it. They're live and you've got to see them. And then so the amount of people who I will like bump into, or they say, oh, that's he's in Organ Freeman. It's like, oh right, do you know of us, do you? So many people will like kind of know the band and have not bought the live show, but they're still aware of this band, which just seems strange to me, like, because it's almost as like we've got this ghost appreciation and this cult following thing where people talk about us so much after seeing us that it ends up just spreading like sort of wildfire. And that's why we kind of cemented ourselves mainly as a live band originally, because we just thought like this thing, it works by word of mouth so well that it's almost pointless playing the typical band game of getting online and trying to promote. We purposefully wouldn't promote shows we were playing as well, because we just felt like the surprise of us being on playing to new people was almost more important than it was playing to existing people that had heard of us. And then it becomes a bit of a chase for people who have heard of us to sort of try and find out when we're playing next, if that makes sense. So we just try and pop up on a bill somewhere and things. But it's amazing that it's kind of new to me that you had a similar experience from these live recordings. That's completely new to me, to think somebody might even be interested in knowing that little thing at the start of a song and thinking that's and being able to take so much from it that it's just like a little literally left in there to make us laugh, and the fact that it's made you laugh is strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part I laugh at a lot of stupid things, but that was it just really took the cake for me. I don't know. It's such a simple, and for those of you listening, if you're 18 plus, because there a lot of the music has naughty words, but I still love it. But definitely check out their live recording on it, because it's on Spotify, and is it anywhere else?
It'll be on the other streaming platforms, I think.
All right, because it really gives you a feel for what kind of you know, band, and also just like the youthful vibe to it, you
Yes.
know, because it's also very, very important to me because I've always been, I've grown up listening to like, or when I first started into music, it was all like Fall Out Boy and
Yep.
My Chemical Romance and all those like
Hmm.
really big emo slash pop punk bands from the early 2000s. But
Yep.
you know, the early 2000s, that's when I was basically born. So
Yeah.
I was not going to be in that scene. But you know, I consider bands like yours and
Uh-huh.
whatnot just to be that like the my generation of music, and it's really cool to just seeing that, like I said before, like the thing that I'm talking about at the beginning of Elephant Man, I feel like that's only something that my age group would find really funny because
Yes.
even that sort of lingo isn't used
Uh-huh.
beyond that, and
Yeah.
that's what really I like about y'all.
Yeah, I think it kind of there's some sort of like I know we're overanalyzing something that's very dumb and very very
Yeah.
stupid. I kind of like that we're even doing that, but I think because I think almost because it kind of feels naughty to do because it's a cheeky dumb thing to actually get it on a recording. It is that those are the kind of things that are fun to. I've got a massive extension to a story which is about us going to China, which is an
Oh yeah.
incredible trip, but similar stuff to that. We'd find that we'd be on stage in a foreign speaking country
Hmm.
and see if we can just sneak in things on stage. It would not dirty or offensive things,
Yeah.
but just in jokes, or just like, or we'd do it when we were playing over here, and we'd be. It's a good thing about having two singers as well. You'd be able to or just even shooting a look at somebody in the band and saying something that the rest of the audience don't get,
Hmm.
or a very select fewer people would, and it's kind of creating those nicheisms that ends up. I think you end up getting a following of people who are purely interested in a certain. I don't know, like-minded people instead of aiming
Yeah.
to sort of please a larger audience. Marginal, what do you call it? Um, sort of marginalizing yourself, I guess.
Hmm.
And those like little references to like songs from um we really used to love just putting in, well, we still do, but putting in small sections of songs, plugging it
Okay.
into our songs,
Okay, good,
um
because I thought I was going crazy. I would hear
no, no,
something
no,
and
no.
then it would sound like some 80s song or whatever. I'm like,
No, we've done it for years, and it's really fun
yeah,
to do. Um
okay. That's
uh,
yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, mainly build the foundations of what we do, and that is like having an appreciation for like these. Uh, it's kind of like a weird angsty thing to do when you're younger, is to disregard pop music completely. I think people do
Mhm.
it quite a lot, and they say this is my genre, and I don't like anything else, and then you move on to something else, and you say the thing you used to listen to is cringy or something like that. But we during our sort of the maybe like the first 3 years of starting this band, I think we really went to town on sort of researching pop music, and I went with well, I went on my own actually to a Taylor Swift show, um,
Ah,
just to sort of like buy
research
into the.
purposes.
Well, no, I know it sounds like I'm trying to cover something, but I'm
No, yeah,
actually bought a ticket off eBay for like as cheap as possible for like a next day sort of concert.
yeah.
It ended up being like the eighth row from the front,
Oh, man.
which is insane. But and I remember like, sorry, what we were doing at the time was the top 40 charts. Every week
Mhm,
when the top 40 came out, we made a pact to like listen to every single song that was getting into the top 40 charts,
mhm.
as a sort of method of saying like, well, what is pop music? And at this time, it was Taylor Swift. I'm gonna go watch a big pop show because I've never seen like the cream of the crop pop performances before. Like
Yeah,
costume changes every
yeah,
song,
yeah.
and the theater of it all. Um, and because I was thinking this is something that these small bands don't care a lot about theater, but we did care about
Mhm.
theater of performance. Albeit on a much smaller budget, but coming away from stuff like that, and coming away from going to see My Chemical Romance and things that we weren't, necessarily like, you could say they were past their prime and all
Yeah.
this, but they were still doing these shows. We thought we'll go and watch the theater of
Mhm.
that. Um, and we came away with kind of an appreciation for performance, I think. And you get that only from pop music and maybe actually, weirdly enough, metal. I'm not person like I
Mm.
wouldn't say like I have a background in metal, but when you see those bands, it's theater.
Yeah,
Um,
especially black metal. They're
oh,
very,
of course,
very
of
into that.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and all that stuff is exciting, and it's exciting for the audience more than it is for anything. So all that ended up just purely going back into this band, I think. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I like it goes back to this thing that my mom would say to me about whenever I'd want to, go to a concert and to relay or whatever, and she's worried about it. She's like, why don't just stay home and listen to them? You have your
yeah.
YouTubes or whatever. But you're like bands like yours are the exact reason why that is a very not correct not correct sentiment to have, because
That's right. Yeah.
the live aspect is a very very important part. And back to how like you're saying about that whole angstiness that comes with
Hmm.
disregarding pop
Yeah.
that a lot of bands fall into. It's really it's funny because I myself and everybody who does music like that falls into that, but
Yeah.
they're big for a reason. they they
Yeah. I mean,
they
yeah.
did they're doing something right. And
Well, you can appreciate something and not have to hate it as well. I think that's just a lesson I
Mhm,
learned sort of getting older is not having a I mean, I'm a naturally pessimistic person. I will complain about things and I will sort of
mhm,
pick holes in things and but I think you still can appreciate something and not have to vocalize, especially with the internet and the way people are sort of conditioned to giving their opinion now. I think
mhm.
people double down on opinions so far that I think they have a difficult time getting out of them. Like I've said some things about things that I end up liking, and the worst I have is about a girlfriend to sort of answer to say, oh, you said this, the other week.
Yeah.
But if I'm like that on the internet, if I'm really slamming my opinion and my bio on Twitter says I've got this opinion and all that, you really dig yourself into a hole that's very hard to get out of. And why would you want to limit the different types of music that you listen to?
Exactly. Like my philosophy on that has always been there is no such thing as good or bad music. It's only music you like and you don't like.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's
that's
right.
yeah. So remember earlier we sort of got into this, but you brought up how y'all had gotten ripped off by was it the ticket people
Oh,
or
okay.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and how it had to do with the we're not getting paid song of y'all's,
Yeah, well, we
or sort of, yeah.
sort of, I mean, the ethics of like, I've always been a deep, from what I learned from being in these younger bands. I think I ended up becoming a bit of an accidental activist in the way that I thought if you're going to book a band, you should do this, do that, and you shouldn't do
Mhm.
this and you shouldn't do that. And one of the biggest things you have is like this power trip that people have of promoters over artists. Um, in and I'd imagine this happens anywhere, and I'm sure you'll relate to this. But this, you would have I mean, in this. Okay, I'll talk about this specific song, but this song that we have called "We're Not Getting Paid" is kind of tongue in cheek anthem um, for the sort of for the artists, the ones who get ripped off a lot, which seems to be everybody. It's kind of
Mhm.
not to be taken too seriously, but specifically, it's written about this event that happened to us. There's a festival over here called Threshold Festival in Liverpool. Advertises itself as sort of like a grassroots, um, very arty kind of festival, multidisciplinary, and all this kind of thing. They booked us to play, um, and I remember sending an email to the organizer saying, "Could you pay the travel fare for us to get there? This because we don't want to make a loss on this thing."
Mhm.
And we got this really awful email back from this organizer saying, um, "Do you know how much it costs to run a festival? And here's the price of a public toilet and all
Mm.
this kind of stuff." This really sort of ratty response.
Yeah.
And I think I maybe had fun with it a bit and sort of pushed the guy. Um, but we didn't think too much of it. But later that night, we had our rehearsal, and we wrote this song called "We're Not Getting Paid," which is, like I said, just this anthem, generally talking about how the dynamic and tongue-in-cheek dynamic of artists versus promoters. And then we went to play this festival, I think the weekend afterwards, and I think we must have been about 5 songs into the set. We filled the room more than any other act in this, this festival. And I did a bit of a, while I had the microphone, did it, explain this email, and you could see them all panicking. And I think I said, I went to the toilet before, and I saw a 10 pence piece on the floor, and if you pick that up, you're getting paid more than the band you're watching tonight. And this song's called "We're Not Getting Paid," and we started playing this song, and they pulled the plug on us, literally.
Oh no!
The plug out, all the music stopped, the PA system stopped, and the entire audience turned on the festival.
Good.
The festival owners. And there's amazing photographs of this show, actually. It's almost like a Renaissance painting. You can actually see it unfold in these photos. And it turned into this like urban legend for, well, I mean, it's real, but it turned into this sort of like story for us that just got passed on. It was reviewed really well in this local music magazine called the Bidolito. They did the Threshold Festival review, but the whole thing was pretty much about us and this event. And it ended up kind of like echoing throughout, and it's a story everybody knows. And because of it, I've kind of kept this sort of purposeful vengeance this entire time, where every time we play this song, I tell the story of what happened. And like, I'm not a bitter person. I'm not genuinely out to get these people, but I think people know us so well that when I really get angry about it on stage, people know it's a joke. But the only people who never know it's a joke, or that it's satire, is the organizers themselves.
Yeah.
Which we've always had this like rivalry for like, about 8 years. But I remember we played this show, this huge sort of Liverpool International Music Festival closing party in this big warehouse with a big audience. But we found out the guy who run Threshold Festival, his name's Chris Carney. You don't have to bleep that. You can leave it in.
Okay.
That he was DJing. He was DJing at the event. So he was in this DJ booth above us, the entire like set for us. So it was almost like we had him in a cage. And while I had him up there, I told this story, and he was fuming. He was that,
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, because I got the audience, because the audience understand it. Everyone was like booing him. So we got booed publicly.
After all, they're there to see you, not him.
Oh, exactly. And it was just the perfect opportunity. And then later on, he came down and tried to punch me and stuff, and it was quite sweet. But like, it's funny because it seems like almost like the world understands it, apart from him, that it's just this daft joke. Like, I think if he just laughed about it, it'd go away, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah, it's like that whatchamacallit, the Streisand effect, if you've ever heard of it.
No.
It's this it's basically like this law of the internet, that if you want something to go away, pay it no attention.
Yeah, and it will just go. Yeah, but the more you fuel it,
yeah, exactly. Very, very interesting. Dang, that goes back to the whole, like, for y'all band specifically, you need to see it live. It needs to be seen live, and be part of that cult following, because I just add so much more to the song now. Because before I didn't know that. But
no, but it's interesting that still, again, how that stuck out. It's a song that's meant to satirize a lot of other people's experiences with, because that's what I always said. It's, if you listen to it, it's not about this. It could be about any festival, it could be about any promoter, it could be about any band, and the lyrics in there, they are meant to be they are meant to resonate with anybody who's been a musician at any point.
They really are, like, because for me, when I heard the song, besides that story that gives a lot of background
Context.
to this. Yeah, context. For me, I have my own, meaning of it because to me it was like one of those things about how just in general how hesitant people are to pay for art, you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
and that was that meaning for me. But and it, your experience and everybody else's, it just paints the bigger picture of that whole, like you're saying, the musician versus promoter dynamic that
Mhm.
goes on. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was just really, really funny and really, and that goes back to why I like college. Just so there's no filter at all. It's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
this was our experience, and we're gonna
Yeah.
sing about
Yeah.
it. Really,
Yeah, and
really cool.
it's trying to do it without it being offensive as well. I think one
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
easiest things to do with being considered maybe a provocateur or being considered like unfiltered is to be offensive, and to do that. I've always been quite proud at the fact that we've managed to still maintain a positive. It's not like coming to see us is not like coming to see Gigi Allen or some sort of you know
Mhm. Yeah,
destructive show where you might get
yeah.
hurt or might get you know, um, just you might come out of it feeling shocked. It's not like going to see a punk band where you have to worry about being on the front row. Because I've seen bands who are like aggressive rock bands, and they're great to watch, and they do it really well when they do it really well. But I thought like. I can't do that where I get a member of the audience in a headlock and that's what they want. You know what? Because some audience members want that, I think. But I've always been contact free and not trying to pick on people and not trying to sort of put people down. And I think out of it becomes this sort of stupid characters that literally are so stupid that you don't have to point it out. I think that's always been our thing. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like on that same vein, from what I've gotten from y'all, I feel going to a show, because there's that kind of the big old oh man, like behind the magic curtains, that little
Uh-huh.
Wizard of Oz reference of
Yeah.
the the musician versus the audience, because you just go and you feel they're untouchable. But I can imagine, one of your shows that y'all would just be the same as your audience. There's
Yeah.
no distinction between y'all.
No,
But
no, no. You're right.
yeah, and I just like that's, and I always bring this up on every show, but I feel the key to success for a lot of those bands, and especially yours with the cult following,
Hmm.
is being the idealized version of your own audience.
Hmm.
And four goofy guys, just make cracking jokes and
Yeah,
making great music. Y'all are very much in that pocket.
I think so. I think also, I think one of the things people leave out with that chemistry is there's you have to maintain an air of mystery too. I think one
Mhm,
of the things that we've managed to balance quite well, and I think this also comes from where we live. Like I described before, we're in an area called Bergenhead, which is
mhm.
a small town. It's an industrial working class town with a dock at the side. Um, it's shipping trade, all that kind of thing. And then on the other side you've got Liverpool, which has a similar culture but is much bigger than Birkenhead. And Birkenhead's always had this like ultra local, everybody understands the same stuff. If you go over to Liverpool, they actually treat you as if you're from somewhere else, weirdly, even though
Mm.
I can literally see Liverpool from my window. They call us woolly backs here. It's like a sort of slang term for somebody who's not from around here, because we'd bring the wool into Liverpool.
Oh.
But it by actually having a river in between you and not having to be, I guess what the root of what I'm trying to say is, like, we've always had a detachment
Mhm.
purposefully and physically from a scene.
Yeah.
So there'll be all these cool bands. They'll all know each other. They'll
Mhm.
all, some of them even live together or go. They're always playing shows together. Then all of a sudden, we'll pop up, play a show, do our thing, and we'll leave. Um, and what we leave there is the impact of only what the show is. Um,
Mhm.
we purposefully wouldn't. We'd be less like, by doing that, we'd have less contact with people. We'd leave only the impression of the band. We would never make music with those people. It just seemed to like work out so well that we'd end up having this mystery about us, I think, and I think that ends up working out as well. I don't know. Maybe I've described that quite strangely, but
Well,
sort
no,
of,
I get it. It definitely, because it's not a thing that would work for every band, but y'all's especially, just because due to your own uniqueness, you're kind of not forced to, but it's just a
Yeah.
place that you would end up in, and it does make a lot of sense. And
And by doing it as well, it means that like by kind of purposefully not having a genre or a scene, it means we were able to do anything,
yeah,
play any places, play any. We've played a gig in a cinema, and we've played a gig in. We've played with odd bands as well. Do you know that song "Heaven Is a Half Pipe" by OPM?
I do not.
They had a massive. It was weird. It was like a massive one hit wonder. They were an American band that had a massive one hit wonder about 25 years ago. It was huge
Uh,
over here. And we played with them, and it was just like a weird
oh,
sort of
dope.
gig. I'm just trying to sort of give any sort of but
But yeah, like there's no expectations for what
no expect. Well, actually, I mean, there was no expectation to meant we can play because people would book us on word of mouth, so they wouldn't be able to hear us in advance, and that was the good
Mm,
thing. It's like, oh, I've heard of you,
yeah.
or someone's saying I should book you, but I can't listen to you. Do you want
Yeah,
to come and play a gig? And then you'd be able to surprise people that way. But it's
yeah.
weird and then you get people who'd seen you. So I remember this guy, who's a lovely guy, and but he knew us and he had seen us loads of times, and he knew we were really we knew how to like sort of bring the party and sort of get things going, and so he was constantly saying, "Oh, can you come and play one of my nights? Because I need a band who knows like how to party.
Mhm.
I just need this atmosphere." And I remember because he was saying this, I was thinking like, "That's your expectation now. Now I'm gonna have to play a big
Uh,
party show, and it's almost like someone takes that away from you. It's like, I know I'm the one who brings the party. Don't ask me to bring the party." So what we did instead was we played a conceptual show called "Taking Care of Business," and we programmed the songs at half speed, and we turned up in suits. And we filled in paperwork while doing the songs with like really reverberated microphones, and everyone was like, what's this?" This isn't the band you told us about. This is a completely different band. But in the end, that ended up doing better for us in the long run, because it was like then that became a story. People start
yeah.
talking about the story of this band who ended up turning up and doing the exact opposite of. I remember hearing the story about Neil Young. I like these bands who. I like Bob Dylan going electric and causing an outrage and doing the
Mhm.
opposite of what's expected of him. And I remember Neil Young had there's a great record by Neil Young called "Tonight's the Night," and it was his sixth studio album, and he had a lot riding on it. He had all these brilliant albums before. He was playing this launch show in LA, huge audience, and they're there to hear the hits. They're there to hear all the
Yeah.
songs they know. He's got this new album. Anyone else would sort of just play a few new songs and things. Neil Young decides to play the entire album from start to finish. So this audience is like, we don't know these songs, and they're all booing him, and he just continues playing the entire album. And then right at the end, he says, "Well, here's some things and everyone starts cheering. And then he played the entire album again, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I love that kind of like people expect something from you, and then you do the complete opposite. And I've always appreciated bands I appreciate Dylan and everything, like, and the Beatles too. The fact that they stopped playing live shows and just went in the studio, and this kind of like you're ready to throw everything away. I've always appreciated that about any musician. I think it's incredibly hard now to look at like some of these artists who probably are quite bored at doing what they're doing, but
Yeah.
I'm really super surprised that none of these bands have like thrown it all away to do something experimental, which isn't a PR
Yeah.
plug.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. But I mean, there's formulas that they follow and whatnot, and it's all
Yeah,
different for everyone else. But yeah, that I think we're approaching the end of
we
the
are.
time.
Yeah, sorry, have I talked too much about some?
No, no, it was perfect. I mean, I always love hearing what the people on here have to say. But yeah, like any last words you got?
No, other than have me back if you want to chat about anything else at
Oh,
any
for
point.
sure. I
Um,
feel I've only like scratched the surface of what I
yeah, I
wanted to
want to
get
tell you all
into.
about that China stuff. That's strange for us, but
Oh yeah.
at the risk of other people hearing stuff that they might not. I don't know. Sometimes I go on a bit, and I think do people find this interesting? But
Mhm.
my last words would be to like we discussed in the chat, to don't be so sure of your own opinion all the time.
Mhm.
I think open your mind a bit. do what you did, Artie, and listen to things and understand things, and don't disregard things just before you. I don't know. There's always seems to be something under the skin, doesn't there? And I think getting it is always more rewarding than moving on.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm glad that you agreed to come on and
Thank you.
had this lovely chat. And yeah, if also if you want to be on an episode of Artie's Kooky Music Party, you can hit me up at artiestkookymusicparty@gmail.com. We'll plug, put all of your links in the description because I also put this on YouTube and all that stuff.
Uh huh.
And yeah, that's it for today.
Oh,
Signing
lovely.
out. All right, bye.
Bye bye.